Well, it's always a bonus when I turn up and you're here, Mike, and you've been here. I've been expecting you to be away, and you've been away and come back.
Yeah. So we just finishing up my stint at the UFC PI over there. There's times when China can be a difficult country to get into, so which is fine. Every country has a right to sort of determine how they work things. Back here at CKB for the not too distant future, and we'll just see how things roll out regarding overseas. But the great news is I'm sort of back in coaching in the homeland, and after a year out, so really looking forward to getting stuck back in.
There's plenty to do here at CKB.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a few things going on. I mean, you've obviously got our top tier athletes, competing in the UFC and some of the other promotions, and some of those guys are on the rebuild. Obviously, Izzy's got his big fight coming up against Pereira, a little quicker than anticipated, but you've got to take these opportunities when they come. And you've also got graduating the younger talent coming through. You can't rest on your laurels. You've got to remember that talent in itself, it rolls in cycles. It's like succession planning and progression. If you don't nurture the talent that's coming up, then you go through a period where you have a lull. So we've got a lot of work to do at both ends of the spectrum to make sure that we're constantly feeding top talent through.
Especially in MMA, the promotions aren't as many as they used to be. Is that something that holds the talent back a little bit?
I don't think so. I think from a global perspective, you don't want to be in a situation where you've got multiple sanctioning bodies and multiple promotions, and you've essentially diluted your talent. You obviously want to have kind of feeder promotions, that nurture and develop talent, and you'll find that in every region, whether it's Europe, whether it's Japan, whether it's China, Australasia. But at the top end, you don't want a whole lot of different so-called sanctioning bodies, because how do you really know who the greatest fighter in the world is? Who the greatest pound per pound fighter in the world is? Alex Volkanovski! Sorry, just a bit of a frog in my throat. But yeah, that's I think top end, keep that relatively limited. At the growth end, growth and development end, obviously we need those feeder promotions, and we need to support them.
You're a great commentator on the everything that's going on in the UFC. You spread your net wide, but you are very focused on small things, and this might not be a small thing any longer after Dan Hooker mentioned about the IV. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I'm not close to that. I wasn't over in Perth. Obviously, I've heard that there are rumours of people based in Australia and nursing staff based in Australia, but I'm not close enough to be able to make a comment. As a general rule, I don't think it is that hard to dupe the system in that respect, and it's a difficult area, but as it stands, if you do that, you're cheating, and it should be called out, absolutely. I don't really like weight cutting as a general principle beyond a few kilos. I'm talking a handful of kilos. I think weight cutting is detrimental to bodies and to the sport as a whole. And this is one of those ways to successfully cut a tremendous amount of weight and then cheat your way back into being in good nick. So given that we don't do that, that we cut a small amount of weight by and large, and that we do so not only within the rules but safely, if you're trying to circumnavigate those rules, regardless of whether you think that they need modification or not, you're a cheat. So if that were to be true, you know, you need to start, you know, you need to start punishing that. And if you're not able to monitor it, then you've got to consider another process or another protocol. They already do hydration level measurements, you know, and I think that's possibly the best way to do it. I mean, we don't want to get to the situation where straight after your weight cut, they shove you in a room for, you know, 6 hours where you're monitored, or you have a USADA person there, and that's where we're going with this, because personally, I don't think it is specific to one group. I think that, you know, a little bit like PEDs and cycling, this is something that's quite easily done. So, you know, either we need to look at our weight cutting rules, or we need to look at actually monitoring athletes, you know, particularly big name athletes with a lot of money on the line, for a long period after their cut.
There's been criticism, you know, where fighters not being penalised when they have come in overweight as well. That's a big thing, and the UFC hasn't really done anything about it that I've heard anyway.
Again, I'm not too close to that. I do believe you're penalised financially. I'd like to see you also penalised on the cards. We've had that on a couple of occasions, and particularly early in your career. If this is your opportunity, you say you're going to come in overweight. If the penalty's not too great, you don't lose the weight and you win the fight. You've taken the risk. That's a lost leader. That's a future investment. So I think that needs to be where we start to work on that right from the start. You know, unless there's a weight allowance. You know, it's a short notice fight. That's a different story. But you know, people will take a risk. You know, because a win's a win, and you get on a 2 or 3 fight win streak, and all of a sudden you're pushing into top 15 territory potentially. So you know, you have to look at that, and you have to look at the risk versus reward ratio, and then decide what's the appropriate punishment.
You mentioned before about the quick turnaround for Izzy, or a shorter turnaround than you would have preferred. How is he? How is Izzy? Is good.
I mean, he's focused. He knows what he has to do, as we all do. You know, I think it would have been good to have a longer period also to build up the fight. You know, and but it is what it is. You have a camp. You get the job done. There's adjustments that need to be made, and I'm sure that Pereira will make adjustments as well. They will see things from that fight. They've pretty much had 4.5 rounds, right? Yeah. In an MMA context, so they'll probably make adjustments in that fight, as will we, and the chess match continues. The key thing with a fighter like Pereira, and to use Izzy's parlance, if you like, he is like the big boss monster at the end of the game. You can hit him. You can actually hurt him. But he has remarkable powers of recuperation. And because he has both a great chin and good power, you know, he has exceptional power. Until the bell goes at the end of the 5th round, there's always a threat, you know, and you can't play roulette with that threat. You need to find a way to hurt him, to keep him hurt, and to minimise his opportunities to hit you. You know, Izzy's very good at that, both hitting him, and we've proven he can be hurt. We know we've hurt him twice, but if we take this in an MMA context, we know he was badly hurt. He was one punch away from going down, basically. But he recuperated remarkably at the end of the second round, end of the first round, and he actually won the second round. That's the sign of a champion. That's what a champion needs to do. So you've got to credit that and go, well, this guy's got remarkable powers of recuperation. You look in the corner, he was sharp, he was focused, and just a second before he was on rubber leg street. So more praise to him. He's a legitimate champion by any question. I think he's one of the best champions that Gloria's ever had as well, at 2 weights. And now he's transferred, he crossed over into MMA. But this is another chapter, you know, and we've got the opportunity to rewrite the ending.
Thanks, mate. And,
No worries, mate.
It's good to have you knowing you're going to be here next time I come in, probably.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure.
I really appreciate it.
No worries. Cheers, mate.